to their island?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Y'all taking this issue that real victims have gone through, and it's almost like politicizing it for a personal political agenda.
But certainly you don't think Thomas Massey and I have done that, right? We always had the survivors.
Well, to a certain degree, where was this energy when you first came in?
Who released the Epstein files? Was it Joe Biden or was it President Trump?
Well, he did it because Massey and I forced his hand with the...
So why didn't you force Joe Biden's hand? Donald Trump has done more to expose pedophiles than Joe Biden ever did.
On a 1 to 10, how much do you trust me?
You released the files, so I'm going to give you like a 6 or a 7.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no, that's
And
pretty
Massey?
good. Yeah, Massey up like an 8 or a 9.
Well, how did Massey get a higher score than me?
Millions of Epstein files have been released. The American people are demanding accountability and justice for the victims. I'm John Regalado. From Jubilee Media, this is Surrounded. Everyday Americans from both sides of the political aisle are here to discuss the Epstein files, our two-tier justice system, and what proper accountability looks like. Today we're in Washington, D.C. with the co-author of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, Representative Khanna. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You ready to get into these discussions?
I'm excited.
Are y'all ready?
Yes.
All right, let's get into it.
I'm Congressman Khanna. I represent Silicon Valley. I'm the co-author with Thomas Massey of the Epstein Transparency Act that forced the release of 3 million files. I believe we need to stand for the working class, not the Epstein class. Today, I'm surrounded by 20 Americans to discuss the Epstein files. Epstein class. Today, I'm surrounded by 20.
Are there 20? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21 lies. Oh, wait, that's the host guy, maybe.
Americans to discuss the Epstein files. My first surrounded claim is that the treatment of the Epstein class shows that there are 2 tiers of justice in America.
Yes.
If you would like to debate this claim, please get to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Boom! Hey, Christian.
Mr. Congressman.
I like the boots.
Yeah, thank you.
Where did you get those?
Got those out in Dallas.
Nice.
Yeah, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Congressman, when were you elected to Congress?
Is this budget Jake Paul?
2016.
2016.
I started in 2017.
And when did the Epstein stuff first come out? Was that 2008, or when was that?
Well, he was convicted in
Right.
2008.
2008. So you started when President Trump was in office the first time.
Yeah.
And you served while Joe Biden was
Correct.
in office.
Yes.
He's from my home state in Delaware. Not a fan of him. I voted for President Trump proudly the first time I ever voted this past year.
Really?
Yeah, first time I ever voted.
What made you vote for him?
He's America first, and that's what we need.
What about all the $200 billion he's spending on
Let's
the
just
war
get back
in
to
Iran?
Epstein files. Let's
Yeah.
get back to Epstein files. So you served while Joe Biden was in office. What did you do to release the Epstein files while he was in office?
In 2019.
No, while Joe Biden was in office.
Well, let me explain. In 2019, we called for the release of those files. Elijah Cumming and I, in the Oversight Committee, we called for an investigation. Now, when Joe Biden came into power, I do believe we should have released the files. That I'm not defending the previous administrations because I've gotten to know these survivors. And I believe that the files should have been released years ago. When we started this, we actually thought Trump would support us. Think about it, the coalition I built with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace and Thomas Massey. And Marjorie said, Donald Trump, you could be a hero. You could be the president who releases these files and meets with the survivors. I was surprised and disappointed that President Trump fought it. I was surprised and
Let me just stop you there.
disappointed.
Let me
Who
stop you
released the
there,
Epstein
buddy.
files? Was
Well-
it Joe Biden or was it President Trump?
Well, he did it because Massey and I forced his hand with the.
So why didn't you force Joe Biden's hand?
Well, we should have. I'm not.
Why didn't you?
Well, because at that point there was a process, but we should have. I got to know the survivors in 2025. I got to know them personally. Had I gotten to know them earlier, I would have, and I wish someone had.
Did Merrick Garland protect the Epstein class?
He didn't protect. Here's what the problem was. It needed a law of Congress. The Justice Department couldn't release things because of their policy until Congress passed a law. Congress had to say you can override the privacy considerations and you can release it. So, yeah, should we have tried to pass this law in the Biden administration or first Trump administration? Yes. But let me ask you this. Now that we've passed the law, why don't you think they should just release the rest of the 3 million files? And Trump, fine, he can take credit for it and try to get justice for the survivors. Why aren't they doing that? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, how many files have been released so far?
3 million. They haven't released half of them by their own admission. And some of those files that they have
It's just like all talking points. God, I hate politics. Oh my God, how boring.
haven't released, those are the ones where the survivors are naming the rich and powerful men who raped them or abused them. So my question to you is, do you think that the rich and powerful people who have been legitimate accusations of rape or being pedophiles or giving money to Epstein in illegal ways, do you think they should
Donald
be
Trump has
investigated?
done more to expose pedophiles than Joe Biden ever did.
No, but put aside that the point. Yes, he's complied half complied with the law. Do you think they should investigate and prosecute them? And do you think they should release the other half of the files?
They should investigate everyone, including
but they're
Democrat
not.
donors.
But they should
prosecute all of them.
But why aren't they doing? They're not even investigating the Democratic donors. They're people
Should
on the-
investigate all of them.
Well, so
All
you
of them,
agree
all of
they
them,
should
all
do
of them,
that?
all of them.
I've been calling. Some of these people are people who donated. Steve Tisch donated to Democrats.
Were any of your donors on the list?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm for investigating.
Have you spoken with them about the Epstein files?
I have not.
You have not.
I have not.
What's holding you back from that?
Well, I've
Are they
said,
giving you money still?
I don't think so. No one who's
No.
on. No, but I've
man.
said that if there are
Jesus.
donors of mine who are on the list, that doesn't matter. They should still come before the Oversight Committee. There should still be investigations. This has always been bipartisan. They're probably.
Are you going to bring Merrick Garland in to testify before the Oversight Committee?
What?
Yeah, I'd support that. I mean,
You
if
would.
they,
Why? For what?
I would, yeah, to understand why the files were not released. But now, would you support the idea that Pam Bondi should actually open up investigations?
She's already been
prosecutions?
subpoenaed. She's going to appear before
No,
the committee.
but that she
Didn't she I thought she explicitly said she wasn't. I thought she said, fuck off. I'm not appearing anywhere. Am I wrong on that? Or how? Wait. This might be an older episode. This episode was filmed on March 19th, 2022, prior to Pam Bondi's firing as U.S. Attorney General on April 2nd. Oh.
should start opening up investigations against some of these men. I mean, there's a survivor who told me she was raped at 17. The person's in the files. No investigations being opened. There's no investigation opened about Leon Black, about Les Wexner. Why not?
I think like
All
the
right, we
previous
got to
person-
pause there.
Okay.
You've been voted out by the majority.
Good to see you.
If you would like to be the next debater, please get to the chair in 3,
Good job, bro, Khanna. You really roasted that dude.
2,
You got him, dude. Nice.
1.
How you doing, Congressman?
Hi, Aaron. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you. I appreciate your bipartisan work. I appreciate everything you've done to expose what you've exposed so far. I guess, could you define the two tiers that you're speaking about so that we all have a better definition of
Yeah, we've got the public, and then we've got the whole class of everybody else, okay, that aren't you guys, including the Democrats and the Republicans. It's both sides.
where you're coming from?
So if you get a parking ticket, you get a lot of parking tickets, your car will get booted. Or if you do something wrong, the cops will be at your house and you'll get arrested. In this case, people who had wealth and power, extreme wealth, basically thought that they could get away with doing things that you or I or most people in America can't. In the worst case, they were raping underage girls. On a less egregious matter, they were showing up to parties where 13, 14, 15-year-olds were being paraded naked, or they were hanging out with Epstein, a pedophile.
Is that how much of this is smoking gun like confirmed? There were parties where 13-year-olds were being paraded naked? Is that like confirmed, or is this all just like Epstein Slopstein files?
Knowing that he was raping underage girls and no police were ever coming and asking them questions. That's what I mean about two tiers of justice, that the wealthy and powerful use their wealth and power and connections to avoid justice that you and I have to face.
So I would argue that
Yes, I was there undercover as a girl. Okay.
that means that there's one tier of justice, and it's just for the have-nots, right? So my question to you is, it seems that most of Congress, most of our elected officials are supported by a lot of these people who are in that other class of people.
You're right.
So how do we have faith in our legislature to work on behalf of us, the people, when we know that their pockets are being lined by the same people that are on these islands, that are in these files, that are in these back rooms at these secret parties, that are these secret events, these terrible, horrible, nasty, disgusting things that are happening.
True.
And the most prolific child trafficker of our lifetime, they're friends with him.
You've hit the heart of what's wrong with our democracy. Are we going to be
True.
for the working class, or are we going to be for the Epstein class? And this
God,
is
I love that line every time he says it. Oh,
why I believe those files weren't exposed for so many decades, because both parties had donors in them. because rich and powerful people knew politicians on both sides. And it was in everyone's interest to stay quiet. But I believe prosecuting and holding the elite accountable, taking risks like Massey and I have. The billionaires don't like us. A lot of the people in this Epstein class don't like us. They're funding primary challenges against us. But we need to stand up to them, and then we need to say no to PAC money, no to super PAC money, get the money out of politics.
Would you agree that
No to PAC money even? PACs are limited by, it's like a campaign. They can only get like, I think it's $3,000 per donor. We're not even doing PACs now. It's just going to be no, I understand super PACs, but now we're not even doing ordinary campaign finance stuff? Okay.
there are politicians who are a part of that Epstein class?
Yes, of course.
And on all sides.
Khanna takes PAC money, by the way. My guess would be every single politician takes PAC money. If you don't even, are you, what, you only have your own campaign and then there's no other, you don't even have like a campaign aligned PAC? I don't know. That just seems crazy. I don't know.
Yes.
The aisle?
Yes.
So are you planning on subpoenaing or bringing that up to have anybody else who was mentioned in the files to come in? For example, somebody like, President Obama, whose chief legal counsel was named in the files, Catherine Rumler.
Well, Rumler should come in and she should be subpoenaed. But I don't believe there's any evidence genuinely of President Obama.
And I'm not saying there is.
But Rumler, Kathy Rumler, she should come in and have to answer and subpoena. And she was in the Obama administration. So this has helped hurt Democrats, right? Steve Tisch, a Democrat. Larry Summers, a Democrat. Bill Gates, a Democrat.
And
Lord Mendelsohn in Britain, he was a liberal guy.
Absolutely. But my thought is anybody who's associating with these people who are friendly with Epstein, no, Epstein's a scumbag. He's been documented as a scumbag since the 90s, right? So Obama appointed, for example, I'm just using President Obama because he's the only president of the last 3 presidents that hasn't been mentioned, 3 or 4 presidents.
Well, he's probably been the most ethical of
that's up.
Whoa, we don't know about that one.
That's up for debate for whatever reason it may
Okay, bro.
be. I'm a registered independent, right? So I don't trust no offense to you, I don't trust.
I'm a registered independent. Ask who we voted for the last 3 elections. Trump, Trump, Trump. All 3 times, by the way. All 3 times, by the way. All 3 times, by the way.
Really any politician.
Why do I hear more Democrat bashing from Khanna than anything about Republican? Because that's what Khanna does, okay? This is the thing that, again, even my audience simply, but Khanna is like, he's like your new Manchin cinema tier fucking Democrat. He has been for a while, but it's whatever.
On a 1 to 10, how much do you
He'll still vote with the Dems. So I don't think he's as bad as like Fetterman or whatever. That's not fair. He's not that bad, but he is like that type of, he's a populist slopper, basically.
Trust me.
Right now, sitting in front of you, you released the file, so I'm going to give you like a 6 or a 7.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no, that's
And
pretty
Massey?
good. Yeah, Massey up like an 8 or a 9.
How did Massey get a higher score than me?
He's going against party lines.
I went against some party lines.
You did, but he's going against Trump and the Trump base as a result, right?
Okay,
that's a
fair.
very dangerous fly in the wall.
Where do you put the trust of Obama and Trump?
I don't trust any president because I think they all have external factors.
What about Bernie Sanders? Where do you put his trust?
I think Bernie is consistent, but I don't trust him necessarily for the American people.
No.
And I can respect.
Thank God. Thank God we've got Swalwell being investigated by the Department of Homeland Security for hiring a Brazilian national as a nanny without lawful work authorization. Get me the fuck out of this place.
Consistency, but I'm actually going to step away and let somebody else come up and talk. I just wanted to hear that question.
I appreciate it.
He just gave up? God, you were supposed to vote me off.
It's doing my job for me.
Hi, Renuka.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I've been frustrated that it seems like everyone who is on the right that's coming here wants to move forward as in Trump is exonerated. And I feel like for a lot of voters, Trump was not exonerated in 2016 when the audio of him saying, I grab women by the pussy, right? Like when he said that, for a lot of people, that was immediately, this person is a predator. Yet, after all that, people still voted for him for 3 elections. I do think that considering the people he was running against, the Democrats aren't a real opposition to the Republican Party. That's a problem I have with the Democrats. And my counterclaim to it's the 2-tier justice. Right. Mm-hmm. I think this is a gender issue. I think this is about violence and sexual violence.
Yes.
And it's the fact that we're kind of, even in this conversation of elites, we're kind of treating it as in women in the working class or women of color aren't facing violence outside of the elite class, right? Women are facing violence constantly. And I think the problem also is that the burden of proof is always on the victims. And so my issue is that this is a problem with sexual violence and gendered violence.
Yeah.
And the fact that we keep trying to go around it, the fact that we want to have good men fight bad men, it's like we need to center female voices, survivor voices,
Yeah.
to
Well,
the
I think it's a
conversation.
very thoughtful point, and I actually would concede that it is not just a class issue of wealth and power. It is also a gender issue of sexual violence that can transcend class. And not everyone who was a survivor was in the working class. There was, though, a systematic effort to target people who were working class, who didn't have fathers, and an exploitiveness of people who were rich and powerful using their wealth to shield themselves from justice. But I think it is both a class issue and a gender issue.
Yeah.
And when I go in the airports and someone stops me, the biggest thing they'll say is they'll take 1 minute to tell me about their story of how they were sexually assaulted or sexually abused. And I am just
Jesus, that's a lot to stop somebody in the airport to chat about.
shocked and saddened at how common and prevalent abuse and sexual assault is in this country, how we have sort of hidden it in a box, we've pushed it aside.
Right.
And one of the hopes that I have is this work can have a serious conversation about it. And the real heroes in this story are the survivors, that we have tried to make their voices front and center.
I fully agree with that. My problem is that when we frame this as a structure of getting justice, the Transparency Act is very important. I'm very happy that you and Congressman Massey kind of started the coalition with it. The issue is that we are seeing the transparency, the files are out there, there's egregious stuff being discussed, and there's still people wanting to kind of move the conversation away and have like partisan fights. And that aside, I think the problem is there's a 2% conviction rate of sexual violence predators. So it's like the Transparency Act almost feels like trauma porn because Pam Bondi or Donald Trump's Department of Justice doesn't even care about hiding the survivors' names, right? So we are kind of forcing them to relive the worst nightmare, the worst moments of their lives. And we're saying, you know what? The benefit of the doubt still falls on the person who's in the files, who knew who Epstein was, who still communicated with him after he was convicted. And we don't have to, try them. We're not going to have them go through justice. And I feel like that falls short for me.
Well,
because
it does.
transparency is important. But if there's no justice or if there's no accountability that we're seeking at the end, that we're just trying to point blames of like who was with Epstein, we're not really getting the survivors
I couldn't
anything.
agree with you more, Renuka. And the survivors, of course, the survivors do believe that the release of the files was a huge thing because they've been fighting for that. But they call me, they text me, and
I don't understand why we're blockading the fucking war. Does this tweet make any sense? I don't even know if it's a good meme or not. I hate this. I just hate everything. I don't care. I don't care.
they say, look, there are names in the files of people who raped me when I was 17. And why aren't we investigating them? Why aren't we prosecuting them? And I forward those names to Pam Bondi and the Deputy Attorney General. There needs to be justice. And if there's not justice in this administration, the next president needs to make this a priority, because every person who actually engaged in the rape of these girls or who covered up for that rape needs to face accountability. And I totally agree with you. And it's what angers me the most is knowing some of the people in those files who are not facing prosecution. And by the way, they're facing prosecution in other countries, in Britain, in Norway, in France.
I mean, I will have to say, like, in Britain.
Okay, we have to pause there. You've been voted out by the majority.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Heidi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It's an honor to be here for me. I'm 19 years old. I was born in 2007, and from my understanding,
you make me feel old.
right. What I was gonna say was, Epstein was first taken into custody in Florida in 2006.
Yes.
That's before I was even born.
Right.
And you said to the previous speaker that you've been in Congress for almost 10 years.
Right.
So my question is, and I'm leaning pretty Republican here.
Right.
Where were you, like, throughout my lifetime? Like, this issue has been here. We know he was a bad guy from a long time ago.
Absolutely.
Where were you before?
Well,
like, why didn't you guys just murder him after his first conviction? Why didn't you just kill him?
We, in 2019, in the Oversight Committee, spoke out about this. But, I've been honest that I didn't know these survivors personally. I hadn't paid attention as much to Julie Brown's reporting. Now it's become emotional for me because I've gotten to know them. I've seen them break down in tears. I've seen how horrible it is. I know that there are so many men who abuse them, and that there is this group of people that I call the Epstein class that has gotten away with things. And it's really ugly. And it's a problem in our country because we aren't going to have trust unless we have accountability. If you can get away with raping young girls, what can't you get away with? So I do think, I wish I had done this in my first year of Congress, but it's a collective failure of our country. This is not about Trump or Biden. This is about how in America are rich and powerful people getting away with raping underage girls or showing up at parties with underage girls paraded naked. It is awful.
Okay. I see. And I agree with you. I feel like in America right now, there's not a lot of issues that 90% of Americans agree on. I think Epstein files is definitely one of them. But we didn't hear about this under the Biden administration. And what I think is right now, the sudden Democrat outburst on the Epstein files, I think it's a lot about timing. It's not really about justice. Because actually Epstein was arrested both times in 2006 and then in 2019, I believe, under Republican administrations, under Bush and under Trump.
But certainly you agree that those arrests, he wasn't prosecuted in the way he should have, right? I mean, he was given a light
Only arrested because of the liberal media that did the reporting, but okay.
sentence, and that's part of what we need to investigate.
Bill, yeah.
But the interesting thing here is that some of the loudest voices about the Epstein issue have been Republicans, not just Thomas Massie, Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. Jim Comer believes that there needs to be far more released. I mean, that's why we have Pam Bondi coming. And I just think that this should be an issue that unites the country, that there can't be two tiers of justice. You can't have rich and powerful people playing by one set of rules, showing up at this Epstein Island, raping underage girls, or knowing about it, and still hanging out with a convicted pedophile. Like that to me should be the one thing we can bring this country together.
Right. And actually about that point, what do you think about Bill Clinton? Because, I'm a Gen Z, I'm a teenager, I go on Instagram. And recently there was a really viral video where Bill Clinton, he was in the congressional testimony and he was flipping through the Epstein files and he was very fondly laughing.
Oh my God. In the course of however many hours his deposition was, somebody hands him a thing and he's looking at it. He's laughing with his lawyers. He's looking at a piece of paper. And the Republican slop talking point of this was he was looking at it. Actually, this might even come from the left, actually. He was looking at it fondly remembering all the young girls he was raping or whatever. Jesus Christ.
At some of the pictures, which weren't funny because he was in bathtubs with really young girls. And I just want to ask you, what do you think we should do with Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton?
Well, I view the two separately. I mean, Hillary Clinton had nothing to do with Epstein. With Bill,
I disagree because she's
Moist Critical did a video on that as well. True.
Great friend of Maxwell. She invited Maxwell to her daughter's wedding.
Well, my understanding of the facts on that is that Maxwell came as a guest of someone who was invited to the wedding. But the point is that both.
But she was also a guest in 2013 at Clinton's foundation, I believe, one of her global
initiatives.
But that's
why I voted to make sure that both of them were subpoenaed. Right. They had to answer questions. They sat there and answered questions for 6 hours. Now, do you think it's fair that Donald Trump should do the same thing? He should answer the questions too, right? Just like the Clintons did.
I don't.
If you can't answer that question. It's okay. You're pro-rape. She's pro-child rape is how all of them should be labeled. You're pro-child rape. Well, as long as it's a Republican cock, that's what you should say. I'm sorry. She's going to answer it. There's no way that she can snake her way out of answering that question.
The same thing? He should answer the questions too, right? Just like the Clintons did.
Personally, I don't believe Donald Trump is as guilty as Bill Clinton.
Dude, I can't.
Clinton, because Bill Clinton, in this case...
The partisan hackery is unbelievable. These people would sacrifice their fucking children to MAGA if MAGA asked for it. It's unbelievable how subhuman, how disgustingly, I don't even want to say unprincipled, it's less than that. It's so gross. It's crazy to me. If he's totally innocent, then why can't he go answer questions? Then what's the problem?
But certainly,
He was on, Bill Clinton was 24 times on Epstein's plane. And
Not to 24 different locations. Every layover was counted. And I don't think he ever went to the island. Oh, dude, it's all the talking points.
also for 17 times he was at the White House.
But Clinton never had contact with Epstein factually after Epstein was convicted. Donald Trump himself has said that there was contact. Do you think that Donald Trump should at least have to testify and answer questions? And he's president, and he's not
Just answer yes. Oh my fucking God.
releasing the files.
And I agree with that. There should be accountability, I think, on
There should be accountability. Speak plain English.
both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
What both sides? He should ask again. Roe won't, because he's a two-sider. He's a two-sider on everything. And when you're a Democrat in these spaces, a two-sider means you're exclusively shitting on the left. He pull a single fucking concession out of these disgusting subhuman fucks. One concession, please.
It's not a partisan issue.
So
I think it's a systemic one.
I was for the Clintons testifying. I'm for Trump testifying. I'm for the people who are Democratic donors.
Make her answer the question. Make her answer.
Accountability. Republican donors having accountability.
Make her answer.
When Massey and I did this is why it was bipartisan. We didn't think about let's protect the Democrats. Let's protect people on our side. We said there's a group of people who have exploited the law. They need to be held accountable. And that's, I think, what the American people want. They know there's a rotten system where rich and powerful people get away with things, and they're tired of it. My hope is people like you will say, look, let's just have accountability across the political spectrum. Take the party out of it.
I agree. I think it's not a Republican issue. It's not like a battle between Republicans, Democrats, right or left. I think it's more an issue between the elite class and the working class.
Exactly.
Oh, when you say elite class, would you include Donald Trump in that? Because he's like, a billionaire born with a silver spoon, been part of the elite class. He's now been the president twice. Like, he's the elite. If any elite class exists, certainly Donald Trump is part of it more than any other human being on the planet, right?
And the powerful and the vulnerable.
Right.
So I think everyone should be held accountable, but it's just personally looking at those videos of Bill Clinton, I was pretty hesitant. I was like, wow.
What a disgusting.
Okay, we got to pause there. We're out of time for this claim.
Disgusting
Thank you.
woman.
Thank you so
Jesus
much.
Christ.
Are most of the folks here from D.C. or all over?
That's all over, sir.
Oh, that's where I was born.
Right?
Yeah, I grew up in Bucks County.
Yep, Bucks County, what high school?
Council Rock. That's a good group here. My next surrounded claim is that Pam Bondi's Justice Department has not complied with the law in releasing the Epstein files.
If you would like to be the first person to debate this claim, get to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, Zach. How are you? Good to see you. You're quick.
Yeah, I think the claim today is quite polite, to be honest. It's not just been a refusal to obey the law, it's been pretty flagrant. The law you passed said that all the files had to be released by December 19th. Did not happen. The law said you couldn't redact for political reasons. We had the redactions of Donald Trump's name. It also said the victims had to be protected.
And they weren't.
And the names and even faces of many victims were released. They redacted in black ink names of the perpetrators. They released in 4K the faces and names of victims.
True.
So I wanted to ask, what are you going to do about that?
Well, Zach, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And thanks for pointing out that I've been fair about it. I have been polite, as have Massey. I mean, we've given the Department of Justice every benefit of the doubt. Why? Because my fight is not with Pam Bondi or Blanche. My fight is with the Epstein class, with these men who raped these girls and who went to the island and covered it up. So we have three problems right now. First, they have overly redacted files, 3 million files, where these survivors have given information to the FBI, named the names, and they're not coming out. What are we going to do about that? We're going to go to court. We're going to have Pam Bondi come for a deposition, ask her under oath. We're going to continue to put pressure in a bipartisan way to force the release, like we've gotten the 3 million files. The second problem, as you pointed out, is that they have given some of the victims' names out there. They've compromised the victim's identity. And for that, we've got to put them in touch with the victims' lawyers. They've refused to meet. But the final thing, Zach, is there's been no investigation or prosecution. I mean, other countries, they're prosecuting these people who committed horrible acts. We need investigations and prosecutions here. Let me ask you, what do you think we should be doing?
Well, I mean, I would like to see some more accountability, frankly. You know, you're the Article 1 branch of the Constitution, right? And, you know, I think everyone here will have different views on these issues, but I think there is a common thread that we all want justice. I know you're talking about depositions. I know you're talking about other things that Congress can do, but I think especially for young people who have grown up over the last decade seeing the worst people get away with the worst things, seeing it never be easier to be a bad person in America. I was wondering if you had any sort of reassurance that maybe if not now, but in a year or two, that there'll be some sort of justice in America for all of the crimes that have been committed, especially by the Trump administration and by Attorney General Pam Bondi, who has been really the cover-up for the crime as opposed to, you know, being the Attorney General for justice.
Look, you're absolutely right. We need to be done with elite impunity. I mean, bad people have gotten away with breaking the law and facing no consequences. They caused the Great Recession. They sent us to war in Iraq. They're doing terrible things. We need accountability. And so I believe we will have prosecutions and investigations. They may take a new president, but we eventually will get there. But what Massey and I are going to do until then is fight with everything we have to make sure the rest of the files get released, to make sure we're calling people under oath and that they're testifying, and to push for investigations and prosecutions about the men who raped these girls or who covered up for that rape.
But what about
pause there? You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you.
If you would like to be the next debater, please get to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Congressman, how are you?
You're better dressed than me. Is that allowed?
Oh, well, I wouldn't say better dressed than you.
Oh, God, this guy.
First of all, I want to thank you for passing the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That is one of the Epstein Files getting released is one of the single greatest acts of transparency probably in the history of the United States government. That being said, I want to make a statement and then I want to ask you a question.
Please.
Within the confines of the law, Pam Bondi and the government didn't honor the deadline. That's indisputable. And I'm a Trump voter, by the way. That's indisputable that it wasn't followed. However, the way that the law was written allowed for redactions based around whether or not something was covered by legal privilege, whether or not something was under active investigation. And that, to me, is very disturbing. The Epstein case deals with wealthy elitists that have engaged in acts of horrendous acts, pedophilia. Why should they be protected by legal privilege, and why was the law written without any express penalty for the failure of the DOJ and the executive branch to meet that deadline? There was no direct penalty listed in the law that you wrote.
Well, you asked two very good questions. First of all, it does not protect privilege. They actually are misinterpreting the law. They have to give us all of the deliberations of why they made a decision not to charge Epstein with the full counts, why they didn't charge the co-conspirators. The law was actually explicit in saying privilege is not a grounds to conceal things. Secondly, they have to give us all the 302 forms. What are the 302 forms? Those are the survivors telling the FBI agents who are the men who raped them or abused them. They aren't doing that. They're not complying with the law. But you're right. It's an obstruction of justice. That's what they can be charged with, and that's what they have violated in the law. But if I had to do it over again, and Massey and I had to do it over again, we would have probably added a private cause of action as well. That doesn't excuse them. They still can be prosecuted for obstruction of justice. But as we were doing this, one of the things we probably should have added is a private cause of action. So I don't know.
Is Ro Khanna a lawyer? A private cause of action for if you feel like a DOJ prosecutor didn't charge somebody with a crime that you think they should have, now you can sue the prosecutor? Like, I'm sorry. Everything about this Epstein shit is people's minds are fucking just deranged. It's so stupid. Oh my God.
If you've gone to law school, or you should go to law school, but you're very astute to point out that private cause of action should have been in there.
It definitely should have been, but there's something else that you mentioned, that Britain and the UK are punishing their elitists that have engaged in this. But all I know of is that Prince Andrew suffered a civil penalty. He didn't suffer anything criminal. And President John Kennedy said many years ago that the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and an open society.
Yeah.
And that we're opposed around the world to secret proceedings and to secret societies in general. And many of these horrendous acts are committed by people that have a history of dealing not only with occultism, Satanism. There's evidence of the files of some of the most horrendous acts possible. Why was this?
Ro Khanna got a degree at Yale. Jesus.
Why were the Epstein files not pushed for release during a Democratic administration?
Well, it was started under actually George W. Bush. These women have been abandoned and they haven't had justice. 1996 is when there was a complaint to the FBI to stop Epstein, and nothing happened. So this is not just a Trump issue. I've been very clear. These women have been denied justice by the Epstein class for decades. They have been rich and powerful people who have used their power,
but
used
what
their
I'm
connections,
asking,
and I'll answer your question, to prevent prosecution. But yes, these files should have been released during the Biden administration. But that doesn't mean that now that Massey and I passed the law, that we actually got something done, that we can't get justice today.
Well, I think the way to get justice today would be taking the steps that you're doing. But I think that the law should have been more tightly written to eliminate the possibility. Because this is the thing. You've seen you stated, I think I saw you on C-SPAN a couple days ago, you stated you got a chance to see the full unredacted files.
No, that's the problem.
Didn't.
I didn't. The problem is that the Trump administration ordered the redaction of these files March. They said to redact all of them if anything where survivors had talked to the FBI agents. We didn't see those files. When we went into Justice, Massey and I and others, they already had been redacted.
So what you're saying now is that members of the U.S. government that should have, members of Congress that should have some of the highest classification access on this planet, you're telling me that you can't even see the full unredacted files?
No. And let me ask you this. As a Trump voter, would you be for having those files be unredacted?
Let me tell you something.
In March.
I'll tell you this. If they should have always. I trust the American people enough as someone that's going to run for Congress in a couple of years and
Good
possibly
for you.
run for president in 15.
Just don't run
20.
against me.
Well,
Don't move to my district.
Well, you know, I'm in Atlanta, so I'm safe. I think that what should have happened, I trust the American people without question to see the unredacted horrors of what was going on, because I think that the criminals, the sycophants that participated in these acts should all be exposed.
So
and
you
tried,
agree with me that the March file should be
Oh, they should
released?
have. Absolutely. And if Trump, and I've always said this, if President Trump is guilty, which I don't believe he is, because he was the first one to, we know that he but he told on Epstein to the
in
FBI.
2006.
2006.
But this isn't.
Where does this is not true, is it? I feel like I looked this up once, and it's not really true. The idea that Trump turned in Epstein or some bullshit. What is the source for this again? I need to look this up again. I don't think. I would have to go back. I don't think so.
No. What I'm saying is that any official, any politician, any person, including the President of the United States, if he's guilty of committing sexual acts with minors, should be thrown in jail.
Let me ask you one thing, though. You voted for Trump. Does this give you concern the way they've handled this about Trump? And why did you vote for him?
I voted for Trump because he was a better pick than Kamala Harris. I voted for Trump because he leaned more towards Christianity and Kamala Harris didn't. And so,
but you agree that the work Massey and I are doing on transparency and standing up for these girls, that's what's more big than Christian values than
here's the thing.
Standing up against rape and abuse.
Absolutely. No, again, but we have to. Trump did tell on Epstein to the FBI, so we can't come at him in that sense. But it's what you're doing is fantastic, and I applaud you for it. It's one of the, as I said when I sat down, it's one of the greatest acts of transparency that we've seen in the history of the United States. But again, we are still, to quote John Kennedy, I see the flags coming, so I'm gonna try to make this quick. To quote President Kennedy, we are still opposed around the world by a monolithic and a ruthless conspiracy, whose dissenters are silenced and not praised, whose mistakes are buried and not headlined. No expenditure is questioned and no secret is revealed. And I believe that I trust the American people, I trust the entire population of this country without question, to see the horrors of what has been allowed to go on within the halls of our government so that we can do what needs to be done and reform it from the inside out if necessary.
Well, we need your voice.
All right, pause there. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, Andrew.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I don't disagree with you at all that Bondi and her DOJ are
Andrew, why is he out of focus?
violating the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
I would say people were supposed to debate.
No, I don't disagree
here.
with the actual claim. She is. The problem is there is nothing to disagree there. She just is violating it. However, I think 90% of the responsibility is on her. It's abhorrent. She should be punished for it. There's a section of the responsibility that goes to the actual language of the bill, and then by default, you as the writer. You mentioned that if you could do it again, you would put some sort of private cause of action into the bill so the DOJ could be sued to try to get the files released in that manner. Why didn't you? Would be the question.
So first of all, there is legal standing, right? We could have obstruction of justice brought against them. That is a cause of action. The Judge Engelmeyer in the Southern
Obstruction of justice would be a criminal penalty, but okay.
District of New York has invited the survivors to sue because they aren't complying with the Epstein Transparency Act. But it was a Herculean task to get this through. Massey and I defied the odds. There have only been 5 discharge petitions ever passed in the history of recent Congress. We had to go against the Speaker. We had to go against Donald Trump. We had to go against the senators. We had to go against people initially in our own parties. And so what we were trying to do is pass something that could...
How many Democrats were opposed to this? We had to go against people in our own parties. Massey, sure, but who on the Democratic side could he possibly be referring to? Okay, whatever. Both sides me, baby.
Get majority support. And if we had made it even tougher, it would have been hard to get the votes we did. Now, I don't think Donald Trump still knows that he signed a Democrat's bill. He thinks maybe it's Massey's bill. But, you know, it was a very, very hard thing. If we had more time and if we were able to get a broader coalition, we could do it. And some people are talking about, can we do a second act to the Epstein Transparency Act? But it was the best we could get through in Congress at the time.
So is that to say that yourself and Thomas Massey considered putting a private cause of action into the bill and you chose not to for the sake of having a better chance of getting more votes?
We did. We looked at other enforcement mechanisms, and, you know, there was also a rush to do it. So if we started out with saying, oh, we're going to sue them and we're going to sue the administration, it would have been very hard for me to get some of the Republicans on board.
Sure. I guess my question would be, were you actually told by Republicans in Congress that they wouldn't vote for your bill if you put some sort of cause of action or criminal penalty into the bill, and that's why you made the decision? Or did you just do it because you thought that's how it would play out?
We had conversations with some of the other people, Republicans, and they thought that if it looked like it was going to be something suing the administration or going after the administration or partisan, it would be very hard to hold.
So the only way you could pass this bill is to make it toothless? Were they ever open about this in the past? Because that sounds kind of... Okay.
All the coalition. If we had lost one vote on the discharge petition, the thing wouldn't have gone through.
Sure. I feel you could, of course, always fall back on obstruction of justice if you want some sort of punishment for not following a law like this. My fear then is that you just have more elements. You have to deal then with the elements of obstruction. It's not as simple as if you just put a criminal penalty into your bill, or even if you wanted to go the civil route, put a cause of action in there so that people can sue. And then my biggest concern, and what you did mention that, yes, Judge Engelmeyer, I've read his writings on this.
Are you a lawyer?
No, I'm not. One day.
Oh, good for you.
I've read his writings on this, and he did invite the survivors to sue. That's great. I think they should, and I think that makes sense, and they should be able to. Then you have to have the whole fight over who has standing to sue under the bill. If you just put it in the bill, you don't have to have that fight. You don't have to go through months and months of litigation. And the issue, and I think this is unlikely, but there is always that looming threat of conservative majority Supreme Court stepping in and shutting it all down. You don't have to deal with that if you just at least in the bill specify who has standing to bring it, rather than rely on hopefully a judge agrees that this person should have standing to bring this.
I think in terms of the substance, you're absolutely right. And there are conversations about can we amend or supplement the bill.
Put it in,
but even that, if it was that easy, you would have the votes. But the challenge is there are a lot of people who don't want that.
And I understand
Okay, pause there. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return.
Good job. Thanks.
Good one.
All right, Marion.
Hi.
Thank
nice
you.
Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you.
Oh my goodness! Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for being here. Finally, they called a woman. It was like 3 men in a row.
I know. Even though, I'm a conservative, so I'm actually fine with that. So
all right.
Let's just start there. Okay, so I am a Trump supporter. I also agree that Pam Bondi did not do what the bill says that she should do. Right. My question to you is: at what point do we consider the ramifications of the names that are on this list? For instance, I did a very viral video. I went through the files that named Trump. Everyone wanted Trump to be guilty, so I went through the files.
Right.
The vast majority of them were a bunch of crap, right? Oh, Trump is buying whatever.
I agree with
Trump
that.
was, a random Wikipedia page with Trump's name. However, just because the name existed in the files, Democrats ran with it, right? I also looked at the FBI call logs, okay? So that was the big one. The big, you guys know it. It had a big yellow highlighted. Everything is highlighted. All of these victims that called the FBI. And no one looked deeper to see that particular file specifically said that these individual calls had been deemed unreliable for various reasons.
Okay.
So my question is, sorry.
You're doing great.
What? I'm just so nervous.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
But what is the space that should be left, right, by the DOJ to protect people who are in these files but are not guilty?
It's a great
we
question.
do not have a valid, reason to assume just because Epstein named someone that means that they're automatically guilty.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there shouldn't be a witch hunt. And there are a lot of people in those files who are totally innocent, who may be mentioned because they were in a news story.
Hello.
Hey there. Hey, I just wanted to answer a question you asked in passing. No, he had not been open about that in the past, at all, that the bill was toothless because Republicans made him defang it.
Yeah, because then at that point, what's the point of championing the legislation if you have a toothless bill?
Literally the entire reason I went to this Jubilee is because he did an interview with Tyler Cohen, and Brian asked him the same question, why is the bill toothless? Why didn't you put anything in here? And he's his answer was unironically oh, we just didn't think about it, we forgot. And I was like, yeah, that's some fucking horseshit. So whenever I found out this episode was happening, I was like, I'm gonna go ask him about this.
Gotcha. Well, okay. Thanks for the inside scoop.
Yeah. All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Or maybe mentioned because someone was talking about them in an email. And I do not want this to be in any way like a McCarthy hunt that just because you're in the Epstein files, you're guilty. On the other hand, and you would probably acknowledge this, there are a lot of rich and powerful people in those files who showed up on Epstein's Island, who raped or abused these girls, who had girls trafficked to them, and they thought they were above the law. And I'm concerned, why are those people not being investigated and prosecuted? So we need to be going after the Epstein class. We don't need to go after every single person. And by the way, Massey and I never made this about Trump. Now, there is an allegation about one person, one woman who claims that she was abused or raped by President Trump when she was 13. I don't know if that's true or not. What I do believe is that the files in that case should come out.
And I hear what you're saying. The question I would ask you is, how much proof should we ask for, right? What is the burden of proof on the people that are seeking justice to demand that these names be released? Because the moment that a name is in those files, these people have to deal with that in their real lives, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about people.
It's almost like you generally just don't publish parts of an investigation. That's just a really abnormal thing to do. So all of the pushes for this were just really fucking ill-conceived, but
walking around with their children that now have to deal with people attacking them online, attacking them in public, saying that they're pedophiles. These people might have just known Epstein. They might have just, sold him a house for all you know, right? At what point are you guys comfortable, on the left, comfortable saying, you know what, we need more time to guarantee to go through these files
on the left? It was you guys that obsessed over this on the right. But okay.
Personally, and guarantee that we're only releasing names of people that are guilty, because I'm super uncomfortable with the idea of releasing any name and starting, as you called it, a witch hunt when there is no reason to attack people who are innocent.
Well, usually the Department of Justice, as you know, doesn't release files, right? Because they don't want people who are innocent to be caught up unless there are charges filed. The problem here is that there were women who were raped as young girls by Epstein and other men, and they called the police and nothing happened. They called the FBI, nothing happened. And it's been decades that they've been denied justice. So there was a miscarriage of justice.
Not to cut you off, but would you also agree that there are a lot of files that make claims of rape that did not happen? Because I went through a lot of these files, and a lot of them were unsubstantiated claims. And I'm not claiming that nothing happened on the island. It's a horrible place. But
you do believe, let me ask you this, you do believe that more than Epstein and Maxwell were involved in raping and abusing these
Of course,
girls.
But because of the horrendous nature of these crimes, I think it is irresponsible for us to relist every single name that's ever been, associated with Epstein and let the left make that a claim to guilt.
The
it
left.
is not fair to those
I can't
people.
Speak for the broader
what if your name is on the list?
But actually, Massey and me are in the Epstein files because of our work.
Should we assume that you're guilty just because you're on that list?
But no one is. But I don't.
It's just so crazy that they are the ones who pushed for this. That Republicans pushed for it so much, and because nothing came out that they could use to roast Dems, now all of a sudden their consciousness has found them. Well, maybe it's not a good idea to.
I think the American people are fair. I don't think they think that Massey or I were on the island. Just because someone's in the Epstein files doesn't mean that they're guilty. Just
but
because
you're aware
someone
that your party does not do that, right? You're aware that your party came out in the moment that these files dropped. They literally just searched Trump's name. They posted in there over 5,000 times, and they let the left go crazy with that information. And I had to go and do this research for myself and post a video.
I heard you talked about Jewish Voice for Peace earlier on stream. Have you been to their website and looked through their FAQ page? They have a strong position on unlimited right of return, but take no stance on one state or two state solution. It's really weird. Unlimited right of return always implies one state solution. That's how that always works. It naturally follows. Jewish Voice for Peace also is that's like a fucking, this is a deeply unserious, this is a crazy loony organization. It's not to be, that's like saying that if you really want to know what black people or what some black people think about Democrats in the United States, look at Candace Owens and her network of black friends or whatever. It's just, this is like a super out there, crazy lunatic organization of crazy lunatic people.
To correct this.
But let me ask you this about, because you've a supporter of President Trump. I'd be curious why you did, and I'd be curious if the way they've handled all of this and not releasing it has made you lose any confidence in the administration.
Absolutely not. One, President Trump is probably one of the best presidents we've ever had. I thoroughly enjoy everything that he's doing. I have no problems with anything that he's doing. I don't care if anyone is mad about that. Also, in regards to these files, again, if you're going to be a realist and you're going to be fair, I think that it is unreasonable to ask them to release all of the files. As you mentioned, this doesn't typically happen in an active investigation, right?
So why aren't you critical of Trump's admin for having all these cabinet members that were screaming for them?
This doesn't typically happen in general when it comes to evidence for such a high
profile
crime.
But don't you think they now have to follow the law and open up at least some investigations against these men?
I agree, but I think we should have the names that need to be investigated.
So I'll give you two,
instead of
Les
giving it to
Wexner
everyone.
and Leon Black. There are credible allegations that they engaged in horrible things.
But are there credible allegations against Trump? Because again,
But
when this came out, that was the entire discussion on the left.
To be clear, they came out and the entire discussion was how do people forget the Pam Bondi handouts and everything? The historical rewriting by everybody is so crazy.
Why not have Pam Bondi or others open up investigations against some of these other men?
We got to stop there. We're out of time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. My next surrounded claim is that Howard Lutnick, Trump's Commerce Secretary, should resign.
All right, if you would like to debate this claim, please get to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Antoine.
How you doing, sir?
Did you bring me a hat?
I can get you one. You got to come back to North Carolina with me. That's where they're at.
Well, good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Look, we appreciate you being here. I got to go back to the first claim, though, just really quick.
Okay.
I would imagine if anyone in this room is believing criminal justice, it's me. I'm a 16-year law enforcement veteran.
Thank you for your
service. So we
service.
appreciate what you're doing. However, I believe that Pam Bondi is doing a good job. And I also believe that she is putting out the files as quick as she can with over 500 employees. I think that's what's working on this, the FBI, going through the redacted files.
Now, let me ask you, Antoine, because you've been in law enforcement. Do you think she should open up investigations against some of these men who either gave tons of money to Epstein in allegedly illegal ways or who were allegedly on the island raping underage girls? I mean, don't you think there should be some investigations and prosecutions?
I absolutely do believe that. And you said it earlier,
Bill Clinton.
Lex Wexner and Leon Black. We have to start there.
Good.
Those two
We're on the same page.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I watched that 4-hour deposition with Lex Wexner. He funded the Epstein's exploitation of women.
Yeah.
To be power of attorney and have all
Allegedly,
access to this
just
money.
to be careful. So on an issue like this, even though you're a Trump supporter, this crosses the aisle for you, right? I mean, you agree with what Massey and I are doing and going after these type of people.
Criminal justice crosses the aisle for me. Now, when you move into the question of justice, we have to do that. I know you stated earlier you're getting likes and you're getting hate on both sides of the aisle. You put yourself in the predicament now, just like me being a MAGA supporter. Law enforcement officer.
What makes you a Trump supporter?
Well, number one, I think he's sort of what Brother Austin said. He has tremendously helped this country when it comes to our economy. He's kept his promises no matter what we say about being here in this room with the Epstein files. He's kept his promise with that.
You would want
he's
him
a
to
law and
prosecute
order.
you.
He's a law and order president.
Excuse me, Ro. He's trying to do PR for Trump here. Please let the man speak.
What about this war in Iran, though? All this money going there?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's finally going somewhere that we are a part of. Of course, we gave billions of dollars under your party's administration with Biden to Ukraine to fund the war that we had.
Oh, my God.
Nothing to do with.
Don't you think for now?
And we don't want Iran to have any nuclear weapons. I agree with him.
He's going to come at $200 billion to Congress. You certainly don't want $200 billion, right, to go into the Middle East war instead of funding things in North Carolina, jobs, health care, child care.
I agree with that, but if that stops Iran from ever taking over the world with their missiles, let's make it happen. We want a safer world for everyone.
I agree with that, but I don't
let's
think...
go.
Anyway, let's
Yes,
go back
sir.
to the claims. What about
Lutnick.
Lutnick resigning in terms of... Here's my problem with Lutnick, and you tell me what I may miss. He went on television and he said, I never met Epstein after 2005. And,
Well, he did.
Donald Trump actually in 2006 placed a phone call saying that Epstein was a terrible guy, that he was
did?
doing terrible things.
Okay,
Now,
but
Kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, too, because of
after 2 girls that he says. After 2 girls, by the way.
those reasons.
So why would you then hire someone in your cabinet who is lying about when he met Epstein and then goes with his whole family and meets Epstein in 2012? He lied to the American public. If you lied as a law enforcement officer, would you still have your job?
Depends on what the...
Listen to the... it's like the mental gymnastics where they're put in this position where like, fuck, okay, how do I defend this? How do I defend this? How do I defend this?
lie was.
An officer, would you still have your job?
Depends on what the lie was. But if you're looking at someone, we have to go back to Joe Biden. How about his son, Hunter Biden? They covered up the laptop deal. They did all that with the drugs. They did it with the weapons.
Look, I'm not going to defend
I know, but
Hunter.
if we're going to talk about President Trump's administration, well, I think Mr. Luckman is doing a great job. Look at what he did in 9/11. He had over 350 employees that were killed in the 9/11.
And that was a terrible tragedy.
Yes, terrible.
But don't you think he owes at least the country an apology for lying and saying, hey, I shouldn't have said that I never met him?
I think he should have been forthcoming, should have been straight honest about it. But what we do know, when he went to Jeffrey Epstein's island, pedophile island, he was there with his family, so he couldn't have done anything malicious.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. You're a law enforcement guy.
I am.
So someone's convicted as a pedophile. You know that they're convicted as a...
Law enforcement guy gets a call. We got a call that the dad's raping his daughter. It's like, wait a second. Hold on. He's doing the Mindhunter. Wait, what's the one show with the guy who solves crimes because he's so fucking smart? He's like, hold on. You said the dad was raping his daughter? That would have meant that the dad and daughter were together at the same time, which means that the dad is in a place with his family, which means he couldn't possibly be raping anybody. Crime solved! Bullshit! Oh, the mentalist or whatever? No crime there. No crime. Not possible.
Pedophile. Would you ever take your family to their island?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Why shouldn't the same standard apply to Howard Lutnick?
Well, because that island wasn't only, of course, when you look at it, there were certain parts that some people have already testified they had no
He went to the non-pedophile part of the island.
idea that there was other portions of that island that dealt with sexual crimes. They were there to matter of fact, Mr. Lexington said it was the worst island he ever seen. He don't even know why anybody would even purchase
But
such
you wouldn't be even close to that, let alone taking, I don't know if you have
Oh,
kids.
absolutely. I wouldn't be close to it, but we have to realize
Because you've
just
got
like,
a moral, I can tell, just talking about it, you've got a moral center, you
try.
care about law and order,
Yeah,
you're a
sure.
person of faith. So my point with Lutnick is he's not a bad person. I say, I don't know him, but you can't lie about doing something like that. And what type of judgment to go to an island of someone you know is a convicted pedophile,
Sure.
who President Trump himself is saying did horrible things, and you're still allegedly doing business with that person, right? I'm not saying Lutnick raped young girls. Of course, I'm not making that allegation. I'm not saying that he engaged in the conduct. I'm saying why wasn't he honest and he showed terrible judgment affiliating with this guy.
agree. We can move on from that. I believe he should have, and he knows that he should have just became forthcoming when he was asked.
Let me ask
All right,
you
we've got to pause there.
Okay.
You've been voted out by the majority.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good conversation.
Good combo, buddy.
Hi, Udawa. Great to see you.
I love how you say my name. Good to see you too.
Is it correct?
Yeah. So before we get into the prompt right here, I wanted to address something that you said earlier about the two-tier system.
Yeah.
So obviously I work in politics, I work in policy, so I'm really asking questions on behalf of the people who are watching,
Wonderful.
the average American who may not have access to information.
What do you
that we
do
have.
in policy and politics?
I do independent political commentary in public policy and public health.
So she's a YouTuber? When she says she does public policy and public health, does she mean like she just like comments on it, or
Terrific.
So my question with the two-tier system comment that you said, do you think that it's fair for the average American's trust in the American system to increase or decrease?
Right now it has decreased, and I think it's fair for it to decrease, but that's really sad for our country because we've got to do big things. We've got to provide health care for folks, child care for folks. We're dealing with an AI revolution. We need a jobs program in this country for good-paying jobs. And we can't do all of that if the faith is decreasing.
Okay, so something that I wanted to ask is that a high frustration that I do have is that a lot of politicians on both sides of the aisle, they like to use moments to politicize real trauma that people go through.
Right.
It's almost like y'all taking this issue that people, real victims have gone through, and it's almost like politicizing it for personal political agenda.
But certainly you don't think Thomas Massey and I have done that, right? We always had the survivors.
Well, to a certain degree, I'm asking you, if the current administration wasn't Trump's administration, would you still have the same amount of energy and venom that you do now when it comes to pushing these files to be released?
I don't know if I have venom, but I have anger.
Oh, I wouldn't use the word venom. I apologize.
But I do have anger against these rich and powerful people who abuse these young girls and how they got away with it. And I'm disgusted by the way this Epstein class was acting.
So if the current administration was switched, would you still have this same type of energy is my question to you.
I do think so because it's bipartisan with Massey. But here's what I will say to Donald Trump. I mean, he actually...
Donald Trump aside.
No, I'm giving him some credit in that he raised the public awareness of this, right? He campaigned on this issue. So I don't know if I would have met the survivors and paid as much attention to it if he hadn't done that. But here's what I'm most disappointed with. You know, Vance was out on every podcast saying, we're going to get the Epstein files. We're going to get the Epstein files.
That's true. He did say that.
What happened to him? Where is the guy?
No, that's true. I do give you that.
Where is he? Like, I don't know what happened to him.
Another question that I had with Lutnick, this is me coming from an independent. Obviously, my feelings may say, okay, he needs to resign, but also we have to back it up with facts. What, on a factual standpoint, what crime did he commit to where you?
None.
Okay, so you're saying based off principle.
Yeah, I don't think he committed a crime. I just want to be very clear because I'm not in terms of this is not a witch hunt, and I never try to exaggerate the facts. What Lutnick did is not criminal. I'm not calling for a criminal investigation.
So you're saying based off morality and principle?
I think he lied to the American people. He said that he did not have any interaction with Epstein after 2004.
So based off morality and principle.
But morality and principle.
So
he's the ambassador to the world for business.
Okay, so if we're going based off morality and principles, shout out to Aaron because we were having this conversation prior, but he brought up a good point that we were discussing. Stacey Plaskett, she was texting Epstein during a hearing. Do you think that she should step down as well? Because if you're going to have energy on one end, you have to keep that same energy on the other.
I have called for her to be subpoenaed, and I think she should be under oath and testify, and we should ask her questions about it. If it came out that she told lies about her relationship, or if she said previously, I never knew Epstein, et cetera, then I would have the same moral standard. But here's the one difference. Stacey Plaskett has to answer to voters, right? Voters can toss her out. Howard Lutnick is appointed. And I think it's a terrible look for Donald Trump. I mean, if he's...
But another thing that I want to say, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
You said that within the two-tier system, it's fair for the average American to lose faith within this American system. Or justice system. So what would you say is your argument next then? If you're saying you're doing these things, what would make the average American who's watching this want to continue to vote, continue to engage? If you're saying, okay, I don't blame them for losing trust in the system. That's supposed to protect them.
They need to see rich and powerful people being investigated and prosecuted. They need to see Leon Black, Les Wexner, and others who have had serious allegations.
But is it only rich and powerful? Because some of y'all are tokens for the rich and powerful. Some of y'all are enabling certain behaviors for the rich and powerful.
Too. The politicians as well who were involved. They need to see, for so long in this country, we have not had to lead accountability. The people who got us into the war in Iraq, the folks who created the Great Recession, the folks who bungled the pandemic response. There is no accountability. We need to have accountability for what I call this Epstein class.
Again, a lot of people may be watching this and say, okay, it just sounds like a lot of politician talk, like political talk. So the average person that's watching this, the average person that's not necessarily engaged in the political process, to them it's like, I've heard this all before. I've heard it all before.
But here's the difference. Massey and I have actually shown courage to get it done. It's not just a speech.
But
we've actually passed a law.
The time that y'all did it, though, that's where a lot of people are pushing back. And I give you credit, 100%. I give credit for what y'all are doing. But when it comes to the authenticity of it, a lot of people are pushing back like, okay, this
But we took
sounds
huge
timely.
risk. We've taken on some of the most powerful people in our own party.
They don't care.
Donors
Because-
of our
Lil
own
bro,
party.
they don't
Scrutiny as
care,
well. The
Rokana.
public
They don't give a
wanted it.
fuck.
Yeah, but we've had billionaires funding campaigns against us. We've taken risk and we've gotten something done. It's not just idle talk. We actually did the work. We passed it through the House, the Senate. We're getting these files released, and I think people want courage. They want folks who are going to say, "Yeah,
They
I'm going to
want
stand
courage,
up."
and they
Ray,
also want
we got a pause
authenticity.
there. We've been voted out by the majority. Please return
Thank you
to
so
your seat.
much.
Good. Thank you. Hi, Chris.
meet you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming out today.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
What's MT Montana Allied Pacific?
It is the Allied Pacific. It's in the merchant fleet.
Merchant
Good oil
fleet.
tanker.
Okay, great.
Keeps our country going strong.
I'm big for the merchant fleet.
Now, I do.
Here's the black lady talking about why she switched from Democrat to Republican. Wait, really?
I say yes, mainly because I used to
2
be
years ago. How do you even have this?
die-hard liberal, like progressive liberal. Once I started getting closer to God, and once I started getting making God my foundation and getting stricter on my faith, I stopped looking at tunnel vision and started looking at the whole picture. That is why I said after 2024, I'm 99.9% probably going to change my registration from Democrat to independent and look at these politicians with like policy issues and not just vote for somebody just because they're left and not be mad at somebody just because they're right, because that doesn't get us anywhere. So I would say yes.
I grew up in a conservative household, actually, in Ohio. And
That's not, by the way, that's not even like an explanation. Like, what actually changed policy-wise that now you would consider yourself to be a Democrat? Like, what part of your faith made it so you're like, oh, you know, as a Christian, I identify more as a Republican than a Democrat? Well, like, but okay, good one.
Parents were.
Whatever.
I have a couple questions with Letnick specifically.
Yeah.
Obviously, he said he didn't know Epstein. Then all of a sudden, okay, we were neighbors, and I met him one time. He said some creepy stuff about a massage. Never wanted to talk to him again. And then it was, okay, well, I did go to the island, but I was with my family, so nothing weird. And it's, you know, a pattern of lying.
Yeah.
So if he's lying about that, what else is he lying about? And a lot of people, and I'm speaking for other people that aren't here today, perhaps, believe that, you know, through Epstein, he was compromised potentially by a foreign intelligence agency,
Mossad.
perhaps
Hell
Mossad
yeah.
from Israel.
There we go.
And through that, many
Let's get
people
it.
have been compromised and are skewing
No!
on both
I missed the
party
cons.
aisles.
Okay,
Politicians
whatever.
and rich, influential people are skewing American foreign policy towards a policy of protectionism of Israel in the Middle East against American interests. To your knowledge, is that something you find credible?
I don't know, and I've always tried to be on
Mossad agent identified.
factual basis. So Julie Brown, who's reported about this, has said that there are legitimate questions about Epstein's ties to intelligence agencies either here or overseas to several countries. And what I have said is that the president should convene a task force that either declassifies information or requires us to have a report to answer these questions, because they're legitimate questions. Our law does not touch the classified information. Congress can't just have a law to declassify information.
No.
So it would be pure speculation. But here's what I can say on U.S. Israel. I mean, I have been pretty clear. I voted against the funding to Netanyahu for the war in Gaza. I voted against that when Joe Biden was president, against my own president. I have said that what happened there, as the UN has said, was a genocide. And there are people who don't like that, but I've been very clear about that. And I've said that we need to recognize a Palestinian state alongside a secure Israel state.
Okay, do you personally believe that Epstein was perhaps captured by foreign intelligence? And if not, what would be your explanation for him coming into this wealth and having the influence and power he did with these individuals?
I have no idea.
How harmful do you think Jubilee is to the political environment? It seems to me like they massively normalize absolute schizo people. I don't think Jubilee is great, but I think Jubilee is probably the best of what we have, as sad as that is, because it's one of the very few platforms where adversarial conversations still happen. Everything else has just become a slurp fest, where everybody's just there to slurp each other constantly. Every other platform, mainstream, alternative, whatever, is just a giant slurp fest. So I'll give them that at least.
idea what the reason was. I mean, this is why we need to investigate. But one of the reasons could be that he was trafficking young girls, and there could have been people who wanted access to these young girls. And so who knows what the reason was and what his ties were. But I certainly think you're not the only person who has these questions. There are a lot of Americans who have these questions, and we need transparency. And this president or the next president should have a report on what the true status of Epstein was, just like we had the JFK files, the King files. I mean, my sense, you tell me, that this is common conversation at a bar, at a restaurant. This has gotten into the popular culture, and the American people aren't just going to move on the Epstein matter. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I hear left and right on both sides people talking about this. Epstein's relation with Ehud Barak, the former prime minister and head of the IDF in Israel. There are plans over in the Ivory Coast where they helped President, I believe it was Ouattara, maintain power with an Israeli intelligence package. They did a very similar thing in
Mongolia. Let me ask you politics. Are you a Trump supporter, a Democrat, independent?
Independent.
Politics?
I'm independent personally. I like to feel like I'm basically a Republican from the 90s. I believe the MAGA movement kind of destroyed the party a little bit, and unfortunately now.
Oh, wait, but did you vote for Trump all 3 times? Let's check. I don't know if they are even old enough to, but.
And how do young Republicans like you feel about the U.S.-Israel relationship? What do you think it should be?
Well, I'm in an awkward position because I do want to just address I am a religiously practicing Jew, so probably won't be super popular at synagogue after this, but that's okay. You know, while I do have empathy for my fellow Jews in Israel, as I think anyone would for their people, I don't believe that we should be giving preferential treatment to any nation, Israel included.
To any nation? Like, should we treat our allies the same way we treat our adversaries? Okay, based.
That is not pro-America or to our ends beneficial.
And do you agree with my view that if I'm saying that the UN found that what Netanyahu did in Gaza was a genocide, that that's very different than anti-Semitism? Because some people say that if you criticize the Israeli government, that in a definition of anti-Semitism.
Oh, I get accused online all the time of being anti-Semitic, and then it comes out I'm Jewish, and the other side says, oh, he's a Mossad agent or something, and it's very confusing. I don't know how me talking out about what Israel's doing makes me a Mossad. Maybe I'm controlled opposition. You never know. But
how do other young Republicans or people you know feel in general?
Well, again, I'm not a young Republican.
Okay,
the party left me quite a while ago.
Young independents.
But a lot of young Americans just feel that a lot of our foreign policy with the Iran war, with the situation in Israel, many other things, is kind of not the thing we should be focusing on. We have some of the highest unemployment rates we've had. AI is coming. That's going to be worse. The entire stock market is crashing. Actually, today it got even worse as I was reading coming in here. So I think a lot of young Americans look and it's like, hey, I'll never be able to buy a house. I can't find a good job despite the fact I went to college like I was told to. And then I just see on TV that these politicians are arguing about things going on in foreign countries that have nothing to do with my life.
Agree with you. I mean, $200 billion in Iran. We could have free public college for everyone here. We could have good jobs programs in every community here. We could pay teachers $60,000 for that. We could have universal child care here. Why aren't we focused on the American people? You know who used to say that? J.D. Vance. He was opposed to all these wars in Iran. That was what America First was supposed to be about. Put the money here in our communities. And they've forgotten all that.
The tech money kind of took him over on that one, I believe, and co-opted him out of that belief.
He's close to Peter Thiel. I mean, I know. But the point is, I don't know what happened to him. I really don't know what happened to him in terms of now he's advocating for spending billions of dollars in Iran.
Billions?
Just looking at the economy. People are hurting. They can't buy a house. They can't have a good job. They can't have child care. They're in debt for college. And what I'm saying is hold the Epstein class accountable and put the money here in the working class and middle class in America.
All right, we got to stop there.
Sorry, no questions for you.
Thank you.
Get him out of here. But also
my final surrounded claim is that Britain held a royal accountable because of their role in the Epstein files. America should hold the powerful accountable too.
All right, if you would like to debate this claim, please get to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, Ome Congo. Great to see you.
How are you, sir?
Good to see you. You've been sitting patiently there. You're looking for your moment.
The yoga keeps me in Zen mode. So. I want to thank you so much for everything that you've done, you and Representative Massey, as it relates to putting the victims first. As a father of 3, including 2 daughters, I'm also somebody who's worked across the world with young girls who have been trafficked. I've seen young children who've been sold by their parents in places like Congo for 25 cents. And so this is something that is really
Thank you for your work.
No, thank
and
you.
Belgian colonialism in Congo was the most atrocious colonialism that the world has seen. I just want to say they so messed up that country, and Congo is still dealing with the consequences.
Yes, my parents are from Congo, so I've seen that. The question that I have with all of this that weighs on my heart is that there was a comment made by Marjorie Taylor Greene at one point that representatives would actually go to the well and read the names of many of the accusers. Some names have come out, but there are more names. Why aren't more representatives going to the well and putting these names out there?
Well, Massey and I actually did put out a couple names. Les Wexner, that's how we're getting the attention on him, and Sultan, who was the CEO of Dubai Ports, and we forced the resignation. The reality, though, is that many of these names are redacted in these files. And many of the survivors, they haven't told us the specific names. They've said, I was raped by someone at 17. They're in the files, but they haven't shared the actual names. So what we need is for those files to be unredacted, for those survivor statements to come out. Finally, if Marjorie...
It's kind of a weird statement. Wait, so like they were unwilling to give the names? But you want to force them to by bringing that's kind of a weird stance on that, but okay.
Taylor Greene, she's not in Congress, but someone like her goes to the floor, it would be seen as political. And people say, what's the evidence? We really need the files to come out to have that kind of accountability.
Well, you did have the victims also who said in one of their conferences that they were actually working to put together their own list.
Yes.
And so why not work with them in putting that list together so that they can have a little bit of the encouragement, because they've talked so much about being followed, being threatened.
Or maybe they just don't know who they were. Oh, maybe.
Being run off the road. And maybe if they had a little bit more support from you all, they'd be able to put that list together. And just because something doesn't appear in the files, I mean, you find these women to be credible, as many of us do as well. Why not encourage them to do that so those names could be read?
I do think the victims have been enormously courageous. They are hoping that the rest of the files still come out. When we started this, we didn't even think 3 million files would come out. But I have said to them that we will support them in any way. And if that means them putting together this list, we don't want to interfere because we don't want to politicize it. But certainly we would be supporting them and making sure that we could do whatever we can so that they aren't being sued in terms of a defamation lawsuit. And if there is some list that they themselves want us to read on the House floor, I'd be open to that. But it has to come from the victims. And really, though, what we need is the files released so that there's actual justice and investigation. I mean, if the victim's just saying this thing and then nothing happens, you know, there's still buildings named after Leon Black.
Yes, indeed.
In Dartmouth. I mean, how does Dartmouth not take the name
What are you doing
down?
over there, Dartmouth?
So what they are most concerned about is even if they name these names, where's the accountability? Where's the investigation and prosecution?
So when we're moving forward, as we're talking about that, when we talk about the UK and other places where there have been other consequences, some of these other consequences have come from the financial ties that have been developed because they can't actually prosecute some of these cases. Why aren't we taking some of that path in the United States as well?
Well, we should. I mean, don't you find it ironic that 2 American congresspeople exposed all these Epstein files, Massey and me, and yet America is doing the least to hold people accountable?
Absolutely.
Every other country is moving. Britain, Norway, France. We need to be holding the financial crimes accountable. The people who gave tons of money to Epstein, knowing he was a convicted pedophile. We need to get the banks subpoenaed to testify in front of our committee. And Ron Wyden is doing a great job there. And we need either this president or the next president to actually open investigations and prosecute people. Sex trafficking has no statute of limitation.
Did he have no more
And
injuries?
what are the chances that some of the investigations that are happening in the UK and other countries could actually be made their way to the United States to help hold some of these individuals accountable who can't be named on the well of the House?
Well, I believe that what happens in UK often happens 6 months later in the United States. So the fact that this may bring down the British government. It has totally tarnished the British monarchy, and that is going to
government
create
officials
public
that are
pressure here
being
in
looked
our
at too,
country
or?
to say we want to hold this Epstein class accountable.
Besides, I know that like the prince or whatever
What message does that
got.
send to the
I don't know how
young
much that
girls
did
you work with if the elite are going to get away with this and have no accountability?
All right, we've got to pause there. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return.
Thank you so
to
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Santana, good to see you.
Likewise. I want to start off by saying that if you do run in the next election, you got my vote.
For Congress?
Yes.
All right.
Wow.
President. Whatever.
Wow.
No, I
Where
think
do you live, Santana?
I actually live in Washington State. One thing, though, that kind of pulls me back is the issue with all of your claims, not just this claim.
Yes.
Right? We can talk about the actual accountability that's had in the UK.
Yeah.
But if you take a look at the actual accountability, it's been all performative, right?
Interesting.
When you talk about the actual titles being stripped in 2019, when you talk about the military duties being stripped in 2022, or you talk about the official royal titles being stripped in 2025, all of it has been performative. Even when Andrew went to jail, it was based off of misconduct in public office. And the premise that the United States of America should follow suit of the UK, it speaks to some other country, not us, right? The United States is supposed to be, Ronald Reagan said the United States is the shining city on the hill, right? And also, if we want to be number one in the world, we claim to be number one, right? Then we should actually take this issue and make this issue our issue.
That's a fair point. Actually, it's a fair critique. Look, we aren't even doing what UK is doing. We aren't even doing what Norway is doing. But your call saying we should be setting the moral standard for the world, we shouldn't just be following, and that the actions in Britain don't go far enough. I agree with that. And I would love to see a new president come in and say, we are going to go after the rich and powerful who raped these girls or abused these girls or showed up to parties where girls were being paraded naked. We're going to go.
Can I just say how crazy it is that the vote on releasing these Epstein files, I think it was one of the longest times, or maybe it was the longest time since an elected representative hadn't been seated in the House, because Mike Johnson was trying so hard to avoid a vote on this, that it was such an opposition from the Republican Party to finally get this shit or whatever, this law passed, that somehow this is being presented as, it's not even being presented as a bipartisan issue on Jubilee here. It's being presented as like, it hurts the Democrats somehow. Like, it's such a stupid, it's so dumb, bro. Fuck me.
After the financial crimes, and that we are going to have a single system of justice in this country.
Well, see, and you talk about a single system. I look at a lot of things through an intersectional lens.
Yes,
right?
I agree
and
with that.
You can talk about
race, gender, class.
Exactly, right? So you can talk about the ultra wealthy versus the haves and have-nots. But if you don't take a look at how everyone is impacted by the different things that happen within the country, then like we're leaving a lot of meat on the bone.
Well, look, I mean, I don't have to tell you about the problems of mass incarceration.
Yep.
The fact that 1 in 3 black men will find some time in jail. And this is because of the war on drugs. Mm-hmm. This is because of mandatory minimums. Mm-hmm. This is because we've had an intentional policy in this country targeting in the criminal justice system black men. So we've got to talk about race. And we've got to talk about gender. Class is also an issue. But I don't believe that we can just talk about class and ignore that we've had 250 years of slavery in America and 100 years of Jim Crow in America. Mm-hmm. And we've had previous instances in the 50s and 60s of black men being beaten, black women being beaten, and no prosecution. So elite impunity is not something new in America.
Yeah, well, and if you talk about the Constitution of the United States of America, when it was first written, it was written for white men that own land, and everyone else after that has been given the rights. And if we want to ever really make our country great, then there's so many things that we have to do, but we have to address the original sins of our country and then actually look to do things to better our country. And just saying like, oh,
well, I'm a believer
like
in this country's founding principles, right? My grandfather spent 4 years in jail as part of Gandhi's independence movement in the 1930s and the 1940s. I was born in Philadelphia, our bicentenary. And as we're coming to our 250-year history, I just saw 1776 at the Ford's Theater, and how Jefferson actually initially in the Declaration of Independence wanted to say that the scourge of slavery needs to be ended. Yep. But to get the votes of the southern colonies, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia, they had to take that passage out of the Declaration of Independence.
Do you think that's what you've been doing so far? And taking that same sense as far as like you understand that you have to play political lines, and so you haven't been as aggressive as you want to be, because there's a lot that's happened. And when you talk about the Epstein Transparency Act, I looked through it, and there's so many loopholes that has lent itself to not being accountable, and that's why Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, all the other people, they've been able to skirt through, but that's because of lack of teeth as a whole.
Well, I think we should have had a civil cause of action, as I said, but they're certainly being breaking the law, and they can be prosecuted for obstruction of justice. But my view is that a new administration investigation needs to come in and have the elites accountable, not just in the Epstein matter, but the people who blew up the boats of fishermen in the Caribbean, the folks who shot Alex Preddy and Renee Good, the folks who dismantled USAID.
But do you think that'll happen?
All right.
Because
we got to pause there. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello.
You're
again.
back.
I am. Oh my
You were
goodness.
so eloquent last time. Take it easy on me.
No,
huh?
absolutely not. All right. So, one, I actually do agree that anyone that is guilty should be held accountable. Okay.
Wow,
So when I
brave.
first spoke with you, I said we cannot take being named in these files as an admission of guilt or as
Right.
proof of guilt. My other frustration, and I have to say, what do you think should be the level of proof when it comes to actually holding someone, when, as you call it, accountable?
Yeah.
And what do you want to see done to these people? Because
Yeah.
again, just
It's a
being
great
mentioned is
question.
not enough to send someone to jail.
It's a great question. Well, I think there are different standards of proof. For a person to be actually convicted of a crime, it has to be proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, I do believe that there are people like Les Wexner, Leon Black, and others where there should at least be an investigation, and there may be evidence to prosecute beyond a reasonable doubt. But in terms of having buildings named after you and being on honorary boards and being in positions, there I don't think the standard needs to be reasonable beyond a reasonable doubt. If your name is tarnishing the reputation of an institution, a lot of them have those clauses that if you've named a building but your name becomes toxic, then they can take action. I believe if there's serious allegations, you should
But again,
be removed.
is an allegation the same as proof? Because I'm so, as a black woman, as a brown person,
Yeah.
you know that there are black and brown men in jail off of allegations,
Yeah.
not actual proof.
But
And
most
then
of the
down
people
line,
on these people, most of these allegations aren't against black and brown men. They,
Sure.
Most of
Thank
these
God,
people
so
are
it's okay.
ultra wealthy folks. I mean, let me tell you an example of one survivor. She went to Santa Monica. She accused this person of rape. They said,
Who is this person?
Well, I don't want to mention her name. She's one of the survivors. And then they told her, come back a week later because you may not have gotten it right. They still didn't do anything, right? This was 1997. There are a lot of cases of women who have made legitimate claims and they were
No,
denied
when you say
justice.
a legitimate claim, again, so I will say I have a cousin that went to jail for multiple years because his girlfriend claimed that she raped him, okay?
Jesus
I am
Christ.
very much pro any abuser being in jail, but I'm also pro the complete burden of proof. You understand?
Yeah.
Because it is not okay to accuse
If Khanna was super based when you say, well, how do you know he didn't do it? Because he's your family member?
anyone of doing something absolutely horrible and then not demanding that it is
Because if he went to jail for it, he was convicted, right?
beyond a reasonable doubt that they have
Totally
done that.
agree, but that's-
so when you're saying that all of these people have been accused again, or that they might be implicated, that is not enough to demand that their lives be turned upside down. Again, if these people are guilty of something, I want them held accountable.
Do you believe some of them are?
I'm sure they had to be, right?
Yeah.
Some of them had to be. The frustration I have with the left is that there's this demand for so much accountability when it comes to the rich and the elite because you just want to hate the rich and the elite.
Oh,
for
I represent the
right,
Silicon Valley.
like,
It's $20 trillion. There are a
precisely,
lot of
so-
people like Jensen Huang, who I admire, who is leading NVIDIA. There
Sure.
are people like...
I don't want to get sidetracked, sorry. So
I shouldn't
my
have said something like that,
frustration
my bad.
is, as a
Linneo.
regular, everyday American citizen, I feel that I am more likely to be harmed by democratic policies such as open borders. Because
I'm
in
not,
your
I'm
state...
for secure borders.
Okay, so but in your state,
Yeah.
something like 4,600 or so illegal migrants that had criminal records were re-released from jail. So when we're talking about harming Americans, when we're talking about children potentially being harmed, when we're looking into child trafficking, we have to acknowledge that illegal migration is the biggest funnel for child trafficking. So
Well,
when
look,
we're
I'm
worried
for-
about Epstein with a couple of people, and you guys turn a blind eye to
Let me just say-
tens of thousands of
Let me
children being
reply to
harmed
that,
by your
because
policies,
we
that's a
need-
problem.
We have been for a secure border, but here's what I want.
No one in California can say that they're for a secure border.
Well, that's a policy I've been pushing for. But let me say this. Instead of having ICE raids in places like Minneapolis killing Americans like Alex Preddy and
people.
Renee Good.
2 people.
And doing
Just 2
raids
people.
on undocumented folks here who may be paying taxes and having a restaurant. How about we have the focus on the border to stop the terrorists or to stop the
We can do
gangs
both.
or to stop sex trafficking?
So
I rather
if you're
we
worried about
focusing
sex trafficking,
on, I
why
rather
is your
focus on the
focus
border
on
rather-
rich people who are committing significantly less sex trafficking crimes. Not saying that they're innocent,
Jesus.
but your anger towards
We're in
this
the mind
seems very
prison right
skewed
now. Oh
and
my
very
God.
towards
critical.
them is because they feel like they're above the law, that they
And
use
so do
their
these migrants
connection-
that get right back out of jail when you guys let them out.
But I am not for,
they are above the law. They are
I-
at a tier that
I-
gets to walk free whenever
well,
they want.
I believe that if you've committed a violent crime or a terrible crime in this country, you should face deportation.
But you
after
guys don't
due
do it.
process.
You believe it, but you let these people go.
Obama had a record of having secured the border, and there were a lot of criminals who were deported. What I don't agree with is what ICE is doing, putting terror in communities. I mean, let me ask you this.
I feel comfortable with ICE around. I'm not a criminal, illegal immigrant, so I feel very comfortable. I'm not terrorized by them, and I'm from New York.
New York.
Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. If there's an undocumented immigrant here, right, came across without their papers, and they opened a restaurant, and they've been
Why?
here. Let me
Why are
ask
they
you-
allowed to do
but let me
that?
ask you
Why are
this.
they taking that place away from someone
let me ask
else?
You, right? Let's say they've been here 10 years and they're paying taxes. Do you think ICE should go and try to deport them, or do you think that
Yes.
we should? So we just disagree there.
Because I think that if you're going to go after someone that was on Epstein's island 10 years ago, then you should go after people that came here legally 10 years ago. I think it's disingenuous for you guys to be focused on one thing that's so much smaller than this really large issue.
Looking at someone who came here undocumented for the American dream. Now, my parents came here through the legal process. We should have a path to legalization and
So
citizenship.
should those people skip people like yourself?
It is so different than rich and powerful people who are rigging the system and feel like they're totally above the law. I mean, an undocumented person is much more vulnerable. They don't have access to politicians.
They're vulnerable
the Justice
because of your
Department.
policies
we gotta
that
pause
make
here.
them vulnerable.
We got to pause here. You've been voted out by the majority.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Hi, Stephen. Good to see you.
What?
Thank
That's
you for
my
being here.
name.
I will have to say I totally agree with you and also with the gentleman earlier who said that America should not only be following the example of England and these other countries that are enforcing justice due to the Epstein files, but also that we should be leading. Former Prince Andrew, eighth in line to the throne, the Great Britain ambassador to the United States, the former prime minister of Norway, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, France.
LeMayo,
so
dude.
many countries charging people, and in the United States, I believe 2 have been charged with crimes.
Crazy, fam.
Epstein and Maxwell.
Exactly. And you gave credit to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I earlier said, I'm cursing Donald Trump for finally making me agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And reportedly, Donald Trump said to Marjorie Taylor Greene when she was saying, as you mentioned, be a hero, do this. He said, but it'll hurt my friends.
Yeah, well, that
goes back to the two-tier justice
that's the
system.
two-tier justice, and this is-
exactly. He was saying Greene, and reportedly Donald Trump said to Marjorie Taylor Greene when she was saying, as you mentioned, be a hero, do this. He said, but it'll hurt my friends.
Yeah, well, that
goes back to the two-tier justice system.
That's the two-tier justice, and
exactly.
this is the reason that the files haven't come out for decades. This is the reason these women were abandoned for decades, because
Finally,
they were these
a
rich and
Democrat,
powerful
so we can
people
get some
on both
Democrat talking
sides,
points.
and they knew politicians,
Hell
they knew
yeah.
presidents. I mean, isn't it a terrible statement of American democracy that Epstein knew both Bill Clinton and Donald Trump? Like, what type of country are we living in that is this Epstein class?
That a billionaire could know other influential people? What kind of country we live? Like, okay, dude.
Is tentacles into our ruling leaders. We need a clean start in this country. We need a new generation that hasn't been tainted by this kind of corruption to have a new moral direction for America.
Totally agree. And I think it should also go back to Acosta, who gave him that first, amazingly good plea deal. There probably been people who have gone for, a marijuana cigarette, have gone to jail for longer than he did for that.
With being able to be at home. I mean, a guy is someone who raped girls under 18. It's the one thing Americans agree on. Republican, Democrat, MAGA, progressive. You don't rape American girls. You don't rape young girls.
Just American ones.
Exactly.
And this person was doing it and trafficking them and abusing them, and he goes to jail for 1 year. and then also that he can be at home. And he, by the way,
wild.
continues his abuse after.
Not good.
It is a disgusting moment for this country, and we need to have a moral reckoning. And we need to have a moral reckoning with why so many elites, business elites, Silicon Valley elites, technology and Hollywood elites were fine hanging out with him after all of this.
Yes.
All right, we got to stop there. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
The Epstein class voted him out, by the way, guaranteed. It was the Epstein class.
Oh, now y'all know I take long steps.
Hi, Austin. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, Congressman. So I'm going to start this off with a quick question.
Yes.
When was the last time that the U.S. federal government was found guilty and held accountable for inherent acts of corruption and extreme acts of corruption? Case in point, the assassination of Martin Luther King. The government was found guilty of a civil suit in the 90s.
Yes.
And we know, it's been well documented, that there have been multiple pieces of evidence presented that the U.S. government itself may have been involved in the assassination of President John Kennedy after he signed Executive Order 11110, which began the process of directing the Treasury to issue silver bullion certificates. He lost his life a couple weeks after he signed that order. Nobody was held accountable for that en masse. Can you tell me of an instance when the rich and the elite that if...
You know, Destiny vs. World is scheduled for 8 p.m., right? Oh, well, whoever sent me the calendar invite, they fucked it up then. But if that's true, thank the fucking Lord. Because 11 was way too late.
Put many of the other congressmen like yourself in office have actually been held accountable for the crimes they've committed?
Well, there certainly have been people held accountable in the savings and loans crisis. There have been people held accountable in the financial crisis, though not enough, right? We should have prosecuted the bankers in the Great Recession, and that was one of the big misses that we haven't. And we haven't had enough accountability for people who got us into the war in Iraq, and I believe we haven't had enough accountability for people who raped these young girls or trafficked. So if you're saying that we have a problem of elite impunity, that rich and powerful people in this country aren't held accountable, you're right, and that's what I'm trying to change.
Well, I think what we have a problem with is that the rich and the elites can purchase politicians. This is exactly why I'm very pro getting rid of Citizens United, the overturning of Citizens United.
I agree with that. But would you agree that we shouldn't have had Musk spend $300 million, elect Donald Trump, and
I
work for Donald Trump?
I agree with that. Would you also agree that instances like that, like when the Biden administration was targeting Facebook and Twitter for anyone that was offering additional, we'll say contradictory to the mainstream narrative information around COVID. These people had their accounts banned, creators had their accounts
I'm
slashed.
a free speech person, and
I've
spoken up for free speech.
I saw you have
and that was Biden telling,
digital free speech bill of rights that you
I do have a
on.
digital free speech. When they were censoring on Twitter before Musk bought it, I actually had an email leak where I said, no, you can't do that. You can't censor the New York Post. I'm a big free speech person. But what's distorting free speech are billionaires spending millions of dollars on federal elections and targeting folks. I mean, Massey is being targeted because he had the guts to pass this bill. He's got billionaires literally putting millions of dollars.
They're not saying who. There's like, how many times has even Khanna attacked Trump? Like, it's always like they're being attacked. Massey's being attacked. Massey's being attacked because Donald Trump and MAGA have greenlit the unbridled hatred of this guy because he stuck against Trump. Like, I don't think we've heard that once. It's just like random billionaire. This is a billionaire, like a billionaire. But who greenlit this? Why are they attacking him?
Against him. That is wrong. We've got to get that money out of politics.
All right, we got to pause there. Please return.
Thank you. Well, that was great. I thought you all were really well practiced and confident and eloquent. You made great points. You kept it civil. You know, you should be very proud, and hopefully your families and friends will be proud when they see these.
Oh, he didn't choose a 10-minute debater?
Clips, but I think that this is the kind of civil exchange that we need to model in this country. So thank you, and thank you for having a really great session.
All right, and we are out of time. That does it for this episode. Let's give a hand to the representative. Thanks for being here.
Clap.
Please acknowledge the humanity of all the participants when you're commenting on this video. Thank you all for being here and sharing your stories and your perspectives.
He had to go do, and we started late, so they canceled that part.
Wow.
The extra 10 minutes at the end. Yeah, there was a vote that day, and he told us about it ahead of time, and then we started late, so it didn't happen. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Be careful.
On this very important issue. Tune in Wednesday for a follow-up conversation with me and some of the cast members in the circle here. We will dig deeper into some of the highlights from this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
I am not a fan of the Epstein Files Transparency Act simply because I don't think it makes sense for the general public to know this much information about this case. I definitely tried to...
Like, this is true. It honestly is so, but this is a loser argument. It's retarded that we are publishing files from an investigation. That's just for a whole bunch of reasons. That's fucking retarded. But I'm just curious, because didn't she say she was a Republican? Like, they're the ones who pushed so much for this to be published. So
Grilled him a bit. So I felt positively about his responses. I do think he was a little political, a little politically correct.
He definitely came with his prepared talking points. As for whether or not I believe him, means what he says and he believes what he says and he's actually fighting the good fight. After the conversation I had with him, kind of. Initially walking in here, I didn't at all.
Wow.
Which is actually what I wanted to press him on.
Andrew being a hater.
I very much felt like he was, I'll use the word, I genuinely believe he was lying about his reasonings behind not putting any sort of penalties into the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Then after talking to him, I maybe do kind of think he's telling the truth a little bit.
I think everyone kind of came in with their own agenda here today, which I'm definitely guilty of. But yeah, no, I think everyone held their own. Even people I didn't necessarily agree with, rather, were very good and eloquent about stating their points. And yeah, I think it was a good talk overall.
good talk, guys. Good talk. Bum, bum, bum.